Hello whiskey lovers, and welcome to another one of Mark's Whiskey Ramblings. Today an Irish whiskey, but before we get to the whiskey, I first have a message for my good friend Vladimir Putin from Russia. Vlad, comrade, just between you and I, about this war in Ukraine, do me a favor, can you please fast forward to the part where you crawl into a bunker and kill yourself, yes? That would mean a lot to my friends in Russia, in Ukraine, but also in all of Europe, frankly, all of the world. Yeah, can we do that? Spasiba, хорошо. Now that I got that politically incorrect message off my chest, let's move on to the whiskey at hand. Now the whiskey that I would like to talk to you about today is, oh, look, a garbage can. Vlad, again, I'm reminded of you, Putin. Sorry, the whiskey at hand is actually, just follow me. The whiskey at hand, as I was saying, is actually an Irish whiskey from Clonakilty. Now, Clonakilty Distillery has only been founded in 2016, so it's fair to say that their produce is still lumbering away in their warehouses, so they do not yet have any whiskey out from themselves. At least I think. I don't know for sure, but I don't think I've seen anything that they put out from their own produce. Anyway, they do have a beautiful range, but all of that is obviously sourced whiskey, so whiskey they got elsewhere, and then they put it in casks of their own selection and then mature it in what they call their Atlantic warehouse, and then they bottle it, giving it their own little twist until the spirit that they've put to sleep themselves becomes available as whiskey. And what we have here is not an Irish single malt. No, this is an Irish single grain. And this is a single grain. It is a single cask that was finished on a Bordeaux wine cask. So a red wine cask from France, and then they bottled this. There's only 180 bottles of this around. This was distilled in 2010 and then bottled in 2020, making this a 9 years old because because it was bottled before it was. I'm mocking about, but actually this is a 9 years old single cask distilled in 2000, bottled in May 2019, making it a 9 years old. Jesus Christ. It's the Putin thing that put me off a bit, Anyway, so a single cask, but this is bottled at a whopping 56.1% ABV, so quite a sturdy single grain indeed. And you can tell from the color that it was in fact finished on a Bordeaux wine cask. Right, the Clonakilty 9 years old 2010 single grain Irish whiskey at 56.1% ABV on the nose. While it's quite sweet, the nose offers pleasant notes of popcorn, some marzipan in fact. I also get red lace candy, some candied citrus peels maybe, a bit of pineapple in there as well. It's very sweet and very inviting, and if I were a betting man, I'd say this is in fact coolie stalks. Right, on the palate. Full of flavor, creamy, spicy, again citrus peels, citrus fruit in fact, some candy as well, red lace candy again. It's quite candy-like, in fact. I get some licorice. I get some bitter edges as well, like a grapefruit pith. A grapefruit pith. What's wrong with me today? A grapefruit pith. But then the wine kicks in. It does not dominate, but it does leave you with a bit of a red fruity note in there, and a bit of drying tannins towards the middle of the palate. Again, it reminds me a lot of Cooley. Do you remember Greenore single grain, the first and only Irish single grain that was bottled way back when, before it got bought by Beam and then disappeared off the market? That was Teeling, right? And they sold it off to Beam for so much money that the sons were able to actually establish the Dublin distillery Teeling. But this is completely. I digress. Back to the Clonakilty Irish whiskey. This single grain reminds me of Greenore, nevertheless, but with a beautiful red wine twist in there. Right, on the finish then. While the finish is relatively short, it is sweet, a bit drying, but quite satisfying indeed. And I have to be honest, I do have a bit of a soft spot for green ore. In fact, I have one of the only complete collections in the world of all the green ores that were available. It's like 7 or 8 bottles only, but it reminds me of this. It brings back beautiful memories, and I, as one, find this Clonakilty single grain Irish whiskey absolutely lovely. The fact that it's at 56.1% ABV, it doesn't show. The alcohol is perfectly integrated. There's no bite in there. There's nothing. I love it. I love it. And that's all for this Whiskey Rambling, an Irish single grain from the newly founded Clonakilty distillery with an Atlantic warehouse. Look it up and you will find that they are indeed on the coast. So that might add a little character to the spirit that they've put to sleep themselves. Something to look out for. But that's all for this Whiskey Rambling, and I hope to see you at one of Mark's Whiskey Ramblings real soon. And until then, may the malt be with you. Bye-bye.